you know, focus on the positives, focus on the good stuff, and realize if you're watching this, if you're like, geez, I don't pay almost anything in taxes, or wow, I think I paid $20,000 in taxes. Your goal should be to pay more in taxes because it means that you made a lot more money.
Kris, it's not even April, and I know that taxes are already on your mind.
Taxes are always on my mind.
What's up with that?
Well, listen, most people don't understand that you have to make $650,000 after you've made more than that in a year. Essentially, the government is going to put you at the max tax bracket. You know, I live in the state of Utah, so my state taxes are 5%. I'm 40% to the federal government. That's a total of 45%. Now, I don't make $650,000. I make a lot more than that.
Of course.
But that means that every dollar over $650,000, there's an automatic ba-boom, 45% that are going to basically go to state and federal. So for me, I'm at a place where tax planning is always occurring. In fact, every time I buy something, I bought this shirt while I was in Mexico. That receipt got processed in a particular way because I'm using it here for studio time today. Literally everything in my life goes through some type of tax strategy.
So, Kris, I feel like there's a lot of misconception about how taxes actually work. I think the IRS's system for collecting taxes is so complex that a lot of people don't really understand what's going on. In fact, I wanted to share this clip with you. A guy goes out on the street in New York and just asks people if he feels like the rich are paying their fair share of taxes. Let's go to that now.
It's a reality? You're telling me that's a reality?
100%.
Wow, I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
I'm Ami Horowitz, and the mantra of the left is that the rich don't pay their fair share in taxes. Let's go find out if that's true. Do you think the rich pay their fair share in taxes?
Fuck no, dude.
Do the rich pay their fair share in taxes?
Absolutely fucking not. In America, in the United States, absolutely not.
Probably not fair if all things are considered.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
No, no chance.
No, absolutely not.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Yeah, no.
Definitely not.
Definitely not even close. Yeah.
No. No.
Oh, hell no.
No.
No. I don't think they pay their fair share of taxes at all.
Do you think the rich pay their fair share in taxes?
Do they even pay taxes at all?
You can't even calculate the extreme that the 1% has.
The problem with a lot of them is that they just would rather,
they'd
rather be dead than see poor people be rich or be well off.
I mean, I know people in America think of Gaddafi as a negative guy, but let's go back to Libya. Libya, free education, free electricity.
Gaddafi was slaughtering people in the streets.
He was slaughtering people in the streets.
So it's a 6 of this, half dozen the other.
I just think capitalism is stupid and it doesn't work. I mean, obviously, look at our country, it doesn't work.
How is it possible for billionaires to even exist in this country?
And you've got the most starving, suffering people on the in the richest country in the world.
Now, wait a second. You come from Zimbabwe. More people are starving in Zimbabwe than here.
They sold me a lemon.
I just think people shouldn't even be able to make as much money as they do.
So you think there should be a cap on income?
Yes, fully.
What we're looking at is serfdom.
What percentage should be paid by the top 1%?
Probably 60%.
70 or 80%.
75.
I think if they could kick it up to 75 to 80, that would be good, man.
Hit them up for 80%.
They need to be freaking taxed.
Well, what's wrong with 90%?
90% is, I like you. I love you, man. 90%. That's 90%.
95%?
Dude,
they can live on 5%.
I think they can live on 5%, man. I get where you're going with this, man. I totally agree.
99% of their wealth.
Why should people with less money be paying more than billionaires when they literally don't have that money to pay in the first place?
Why do you think poor people pay more than rich people?
Because this country is a joke.
The poorest people are being milked more than the freaking rich.
So do you think that the poor pay a higher percentage of their income?
Yes.
Or the rich?
They do pay a higher percentage
of
their
poor.
income. Yeah, they do, yeah.
Oh, the lower class, definitely.
Pay more?
Yeah.
Lower income people. Poor people.
So the 1% earn about 25% of all the income in America.
So well, there you go. If we're talking about fair share, then, you know, if you're bringing in 25% of the income, 25% of the taxes should also...
That would be fair.
I would think so, yeah.
And would you be surprised if I told you that the top 1% pay 40% of all taxes?
I would be surprised, yeah.
Would it surprise you if I said the rich, the 1%, pay 40% of all taxes in America?
Interesting. Would surprise me. Yeah. Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So a little more fair than you might have thought.
Yeah.
What percent of income do you think the top 1% pay?
I think they're paying like freaking 2% of that.
They're paying 27%.
What?
27%. What percent of their income do you think people at the 50% and below pay?
Probably higher than 27%. It gets higher the lower your income comes.
So what do you think the number is?
I think it's probably over 50.
It's 4%.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
That's a little more fair.
Yeah, that sounds fair. Man, yeah. I need to study up more on this, man. I'm not paying attention to actual numbers.
Would it surprise you if I said that the top 1% pay 27% of their income in taxes?
27%.
And the bottom 50% pay 4% of their income in taxes.
Really?
Would that surprise you?
Yes.
Does that seem more fair?
Yeah, it would be pretty fair.
Oh, wow. Yes, I would. I didn't know that.
Is that surprising?
Yes.
Does that seem more fair?
Because I feel like it's, I mean, well, yeah, it would definitely seem fair.
Telling me that's a reality?
100%.
Wow. I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
Seems like the bottom should pay a little more.
Okay, so you saw in this clip how crazy this is. People feel like the rich need to be taxed more.
Well, first of all, let's be honest. I don't know how many people they interviewed and if there was an agenda on saying, well, we interviewed 500 people and we found that 15 people had this really strong. I'm like, I just got to say this because this is the jacked up thing that happens in the world of media that has so many people at odds with each other today. What is really real and what is going through someone else's filter so that they can color the way people think?
Of course, when you're shooting something, you're going to use the footage that supports your goal.
So I'm not offended. I'm not offended because I know there are people out there that feel that way.
Right.
But take a look at the deeper stats.
But that's what I was going to say is even if they interviewed 500 people, still the 10 that we saw in that clip or heard in that clip have some huge misconceptions about taxes.
Yeah.
And when he says things like the top 2% of earners account for 40% of all taxes collected.
Say that again.
The top 2% of earners, meaning the rich, they pay 40% of all taxes collected in a year by the government.
And yet, what's the opposite stat?
And the opposite stat is the bottom 50% of earners, so people that are in middle class down to the poverty line, they cover like 2%.
Yep. So
of all taxes collected.
It's kind of an interesting game. So if you first of all just take a look at trying to understand what's happening.
Right.
The more you make, the more you'll get bumped into a higher tax bracket. The higher the tax bracket, the more you're going to end up paying. And like I said, so once you're over 650,000 and beyond, it just means that automatically, boom, there's a 40% hit, and then whatever your state is. If you live in a state, if you live in California, I mean, those are obnoxiously high taxes. And then if you take your 40% into it, now all of a sudden it feels like you've got a monkey attached to your back that is taking 50 cents of every dollar of profit out of your pocket. But people that are making less than $100,000 for, a year, of course, many of them are going to believe that the rich aren't paying their fair share. But the truth is they're not even paying taxes. For the first couple $100,000 I made, for the 7 years that I had that going before I priced myself out of it, I didn't pay taxes.
Yeah.
So part of me gets it because there is a game involved with understanding the IRS tax code. Because, for example, when you become a business owner, that opens up 250 different tax benefits, deductions, things that you can buy, do, and have, your cell phone, the miles on your car, what you drive, the office space that you use in your house for operating your business. All of these things all of a sudden become deductions. And so a lot of people don't understand. It's like, okay, check it out. My business did $100,000 of profit this year. But I also bought some of these things to help support my business, and that knocked my profit down. And now at the end of the day, I'm hardly paying taxes at all. And so really our system is currently built that the more you make, the higher bracket you're going to be in. Use as much deduction as is legally allowable. And then outside of that, you're going to pay what you're going to pay.
So here's my question to you. At what point should people start caring about their taxes, right? Because when I had a job and I was 21 and I had a W-2, like come April, I didn't know what was going to happen. I had my fingers crossed that I'd get a tax return, and got to be honest, I didn't even really know what a tax return was.
Yeah, you didn't realize that every month or every paycheck money was being taken out, sent to the government for what their estimated tax was going to be if you're a W-2 employee.
Well, and I didn't even realize that employers help pay some of those taxes. That's one of the benefits of being an employee versus a contractor or a 1099.
Yeah, and then, I remember the first time I got my very first tax check back from the government. It was like, whoa, you overpaid $3,000. And my wife and I went to Cancun. So I was like, I like this whole tax thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reality is that I, first and foremost, remember when I heard this from, I'm trying to remember the mentor that shared this with me. They said, pay the goose that lays the golden egg.
Yeah.
And so, sure, there are times in our history when taxes have been lower, and there are times when taxes have been higher. But at the end of the day, you have to ask, am I in a free country, and have I been allowed and afforded the freedoms to be able to create and build a business or do the things that I'm doing? And, if you feel right now that you live in a free country and that they are affording you that opportunity, I always tell people, feel good about your taxes. In fact, one of my other mentors, Dolph DeRoos, you know what he always says? He says, I wish my tax bill was $100 million. Because that would mean that I'm making a lot more money. And so I do think it's important to have a good attitude about it. My belief is that we should, whatever I'm asked to pay, I'm going to pay whatever my fair share is after I've done everything in my power to maximize all the deductions that the IRS makes available to me.
So if someone is going into business, you're almost just accepting that the government is going to be this sort of silent
business partner.
Yeah, the silent business partner.
And as in, now, by the way, when your business fails, they're not going to penalize you, but if you succeed, they're going to say, hey, check it out. And I've got buddies literally who have left the country to go to places in the world that have little or no taxes whatsoever, because financially they just said that makes way more sense.
Out of curiosity, what are some of those places, Kris?
Well, Puerto Rico, I think, is one of the it's one of the popular ones. Currently, it won't stay this way, but it's your tax situation goes from 40% down to 4%. You automatically, now you have to live there 6 months out of the year. You have to have a car there. You have to be registered. You have to have a house there. You can't game that system. If they audit and find out you're messing with the way that tax code is written, they're going to make you pay your everything in taxes. But I've got a buddy who's like, Kris, I got 4 more years and I'm retiring. And I've done the math. And if I live there, the millions that I'll save in taxes will mean that I'll be set for the rest of my life. So it's part of my strategy that my family and I were going to live there for 4 years. He moved there, and that's exactly what he did.
Dang. So again, at what point do taxes really matter? I mean, if you're starting a business, if you're just an employee, what's your strategy with taxes?
First of all, I want to say to all the people that are like, oh yeah, because I owe taxes, I like to buy stuff for tax deduction reasons.
And that's a very common thing.
I bought this RV, I bought this truck, I bought this timeshare.
It's all for the business.
It's all for the business. And, so I want to give you just a couple of rules or ways that'll help you understand this. The first one is, don't buy things that you don't want just because there's a write-off. Here's why. Let's just assume for a moment that I have a team of tax efficiency experts that are doing monthly planning so that by the time the end of the year has come around, I've already set aside all the money I'm going to give the government through estimated taxes. I've already given a portion to them, and I've basically maximized my tax situation. And let's say that because of that, at the end of the day, I've been able to effectively reduce my maximum taxable situation from 45%, which is what it would be without tax planning. Let's say that I got it down to 30%, 30 cents on every dollar, 30%. What does that mean? Well, it means that if I genuinely want to buy something and I can legitimately use it through my business, that I get a 30% discount. So earlier this year, I decided to buy a $250,000 custom-made truck. It's called an Apocalypse. It was just featured on Jay Leno's Garage. It starts as a Jeep Gladiator. They basically rip off the front of it, and they drop in a Hellcat motor and rebuild the whole thing. So it's got 650 horses. It's got a supercharger the size of a Honda Civic. It's amazing. They chop off the entire backside and they drop in another axle. They extend the bed from 4 feet to 7 feet. And I got these 42-inch tires, and it's a 6x6 vehicle. That means that, how there's cars that are like, I can go in 4-wheel drive. That means all 4 wheels have power and move and turn. I drive a 6x6. I drove it here actually today. It's very fun. It's very cool looking.
Okay,
it looks kind of like a tank.
I'm going to tangent for a second.
Okay.
With those 4 wheels in the back, how does the differential work when you're turning?
So the front tires turn.
Of course.
The back tires don't, but they've got crazy articulation in the suspension. So
is that because, I mean, when you're turning, that's a lot of wear on those outside wheels because there's so much.
Dude, do I look like I care? That car is fun to drive. The best part is I've got like a sound system in it, and I've got like a little speaker system and sirens and horns and things that I probably shouldn't have. I don't really know if they're legal or not in the state of Utah, but I do know that if I pull up next to cars and people are gawking, I can get on the speaker and say, "Sir, close your mouth, you're drooling." And everyone laughs and goes nuts and crazy. No, so I mean, it's fun. But, you know, the truth is I use that for business. It's part of my influencer business. And we drop it in really cool videos. We just finished filming War Week where I'm shooting cannons and tanks and cool stuff like that. I did that for my birthday. I shot 5 YouTube videos out of it. And because I'm at an effective tax rate, my effective tax margin is 30%. That means that I really want that truck. The government pitched in 30 cents on every dollar.
Because
I really want to take that, you know, that rich birthday boy trip and blow things up. And I'm going to film it and do all some, you know, cool stuff with it and have a grand time. And the government paid for 30% of that. That's a way of looking at it. So only buy what you really would want. Because that is then the benefit. It's like, well, if I'm going to have to pay this tax to the government, then I might as well figure out how best to enjoy my life. And then they're going to participate in giving me discounts on the things that I want to buy in life. So things down to as simple as maybe a new phone or an iPad or a $2,000 MacBook Pro.
So before all this, when you were just getting started and it was just your own real estate, there were some really sexy deductions.
Oh, dude, I used real estate in the beginning to keep me from paying taxes for 7 years. And by the way, it's not that I was trying to avoid taxes. It just so happens that I was buying real estate at a faster rate than I grew my own personal income.
Yeah.
And the depreciation on the properties kept canceling out that income.
How does that work? Because most people don't understand depreciation.
Yeah, I mean, let's keep it really basic.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at a $250,000 house, the government says, hey, you realize that things on that house are going to wear off. Like, people don't, first of all, understand what depreciation is. So let me define depreciation real simple. Your laptop. Most people have a laptop. When you have a laptop for business and the government's like, well, we're your secret business partner and we understand that you need this laptop to operate your business, it's going to wear out. In 5 years, it's going to be obsolete. And they've said in 5 years it's obsolete. It's just something that
it's a standard
they decided it. That means if you paid $2,000 for that laptop, then you get to write it off over 5 years. Well, $2,000 divided by 5 years is $400 per year. They're basically saying, hey, if your income this year was $50,000 and you need that laptop for business, you get to write off this year. Your income wasn't $50,000, it was $49,600. Or in other words,
your taxable
$400 less. Your taxable income is $400 less. Now, let's just assume for a moment that at only $50,000 a year that I was in a 10% tax mark. It's going to even be lower than that after deductions. Let's just say I was supposed to pay 10%. My real savings are 10% on my deduction. If I get to deduct $400, 10% on that is $40. So this year I get to save $40. Next year I save $40. Next year I save $40. At the end of 5 years, 10% of that $2,000 laptop the government pitched in on, because literally that's money I should have paid the government in taxes that I didn't have to because of the deduction. Well, a house is a lot bigger than a laptop.
Yes.
In fact, it's one of the biggest.
Significant real quick.
In fact, I'll show you an example on a house, but I just bought a $7 million commercial piece of property and the deduction on that is much bigger numbers. So let's talk about a house. So you buy a $250,000 house and the government says, I wonder what arbitrary number we should assign because the carpet's going to go bad, the roof will need to be replaced, the appliances will need to go, the flooring will need to get redone, you're going to have to repaint several times. Let's just say that you're going to have to replace everything in this house over 27 and a half years.
Is that the number?
That's the number.
IRS.
So I'm just going to pull out my calculator right here. I'm going to do the math because I want you to see how easy. Sometimes taxes are hard to understand, but look how simple this is. I'm going to find my calculator somewhere in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in to my calculator $250,000, 250,000.
I'm going to follow along.
And I'm going to divide that by 27.5. And it says, well, Kris, every year you get to deduct $9,090. And I think, but wait a second. I had a $500 a month positive cash flow on that property. Shouldn't I pay taxes on my cash flow? Meaning after I paid my expenses for the month, like my mortgage is $1,000 and my tenants are paying me $1,500 and there's $500 left over. Well, $500 every month times 12 months is $6,000. But remember, you have a $9,000 depreciable write-off. So the first $6,000, by the way, I get to write $9,000 off of my income. $6,000 of that is my cash flow. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that I'm not paying taxes on my $6,000 of positive cash flow? It is. It means that I'm not paying tax. That's tax-free money.
Because you're deducting more than you earn.
Yeah, but there's still $3,000 left over, right? If I take the $9,000 that I get and I subtract the $6,000 that I already got, there's $3 left over. So guess where that comes off of? My job.
Your job, your regular.
My job was paying me $60,000 a year. Now on paper, it looks like they were paying me $57,000. Wait, I have 10 more properties.
Wow.
What's 10 times 3,000 per? That's 30 grand. Wait, my job's not paying me 60,000. To the government, it looks like I'm actually only earning $30,000. Well, not only is 30,000 a lower tax bracket than 60,000, so the percentage is lower, but 30,000 may put you in a number now where you're going to pay almost nothing in taxes because your fair share is the government basically saying, yo, you just don't make a whole lot of money. We're not going to ask you to contribute. We're going to go to the rich dude over there. We're going to make him contribute a whole lot more. By the way, the more money you make, the more you are going to owe.
So, and if you were working a W-2 job, you would have been setting aside a little bit of money every paycheck to go towards taxes based on that 50,000 income. So come tax season,
I would have the money.
You'd have a fat return because they're saying you get it all back.
Yeah,
you paid more.
And you got to be troubled that you don't get into tax problems when you own your own business, because when you work a job, that money is taken out by HR. They're taking it, they're setting it aside, they're giving it to the government every month. The government doesn't wait to get fed next year. They're going to make you overpay, and then they're going to make sure that they give you a reimbursement. Right. By the way, what do you think the government is doing with your money that they're holding on to that is yours anyway a year later?
Investing it.
They're doing things with your money, I promise you, just like a bank would or anyone else would.
And another thing, if you have a tax return and you don't file, does the IRS care?
It's a good question.
They don't. If you wait on getting your check from the government, they're like, oh, we'll hold on to it for as long as you want.
Hold your money as long as you want.
Now, if you owe, that's a different story. The IRS will come after you. But if you're getting a return.
Now, I've got an account right now that has millions of dollars in it, and this is money set aside to give to the government come April. Every quarter, I have quarterly estimated payments that come out of there based on last year's quarterly payments, and that goes off to the government, but there's still a pile of money left over, and that money is good as gone. However, before the end of this year, if I purchase this commercial piece of property that I have under contract, and I get to depreciate that $7 million piece of property, that's going to deliver 7-figure tax write-off possibilities for me. Because in commercial, just like residential, you can accelerate the depreciation. Instead of saying, we're going to depreciate it over 27 and a half years, the government says, well, you could accelerate that if you pay someone to do a special report. Well, what's that? It's called cost segregation. They're going to actually look at the carpet, the lights, the furniture, the stuff in the building, the roof when it needs to be replaced, and they'll probably deem that you're going to actually have a lot of things to do on that property. So in the first year, they're going to let you deduct up to 30 or 40% of the depreciation. Wow. So think about a $7 million piece of property. And if I get to deduct, let's call it 35% of that in the first year, $7 million, so just put this in my calculator because I want you to see how easy this is. I take $7 million and I multiply that by 0.35 for 35%, and I get to write off $2.45 million in the first year if I buy it before the end of the year. Now again, let's say that my tax bracket is a fictional number, 35%. So I'm going to times that amount by 0.35, and that's $857,000. So with this fictitious example, with these numbers, that's $857,000 that is in my tax account that I can extract and say, nope, this does not go to the government. It's now moved into my clean account. And by the way, clean account is money I get to keep after it's been taxed. So when money comes into my world, I'm always pulling out the estimated taxes. So when you say, well, Kris, tax planning is always happening for you. Yeah, I'm always making purchases and I'm buying stuff and I'm asking, like, I bought 3 new vehicles, like all inside of 60 days. And I talked to my CPA and my tax team and I said, do I buy it cash? Do I lease it? Or do I purchase and finance it? which one will deliver. And I won't go into the example of what the answer was, but the point is that every time I make a financial sneeze in my world, I have a team that I go to that basically says, what's the most tax advantaged way for me to purchase this? And how does that affect my marginal rate? Because every time I give myself a distribution, that marginal rate is going to take a portion out that's estimated of what I'm going to have to give the government. Because here's my goal. My goal is that when April rolls around next year and I write a big, big, juicy, fat check to the government, that I don't feel like a penny came out of my pocket because of how I run my personal financial life. A lot of planning on that you don't have to worry about until you start making some serious money. But you want to have this problem. It's not a problem. This is a blessing. And by the way, have a good attitude about taxes because you don't want to be one of those life sucker vampires. Sucks the life out of the room and we're like, oh my gosh, well, believe it, I'm just paying taxes. Don't be that guy. Instead, focus on the positives, focus on the good stuff, and realize if you're watching this, if you're like, geez, I don't pay almost anything in taxes, or wow, I think I paid $20,000 in taxes. Your goal should be to pay more in taxes because it means that you made a lot more money. So you should always be focusing on how do I make more money? And then as you make more money, you should get smarter. Now, by the way, here's one of the smartest things you can do. Start a business. Why? Because that's how you unlock 250 different tax deductions. You want to be an entrepreneur. By the way, I'm so excited for the upcoming Gen Z. 90% of them self-proclaim that they want to be entrepreneurs and work for themselves. They are literally breaking the chain from the get good grades, go to college, work for somebody else. The writing is on the wall. The next generation has it figured out. Millennials are, I think, stuck in the awkward transition a little bit, but they're starting to realize that how are you really supposed to, dude, college is really just about career knowledge. It's really about vocational training. It's really just about making enough money to pay your bills.
Overpriced.
It is it's a very, very expensive system that you're going to be paying on for decades, unless the government snaps their fingers and Thanos your debt away.
Kris, I hear you talk about these things, and in my mind, I'm like, I just wish there was a place that people could come and get in your airspace and learn from not just you, but also your mentors about all these amazing financial strategies. Kris, is there a place where people can learn this stuff?
So years ago, I'll never forget the first time someone told me that your income will be the average of the 5 people you hang out with most. And I was like, wait. I did the math. I wrote down my buddies' names. I wrote down their job incomes. And holy cow, I was like,
was it right?
At the time I was making, I think like $45,000. And I looked at the people and sure enough, I was making the average of the 5 people I hung out with. And the person told me this because they said, what you need to do is just swap out one of those people for a super successful person. And I did an experiment. The first person that I hung out with that was a millionaire, guess what happened? It was weird. It was like it rubbed off through the ether. It wasn't that I was doing deals with them. It was just their influence, the way they spoke, the way they talked, the way they acted. I spent this last week in Mexico. I had a 3-day mastermind. I hung out with some amazing, beautiful souls that are all financially, in the game. And I'm talking to them about private jets and some of the financial choices I'm making in my life. And you can just see it right there. They're upgrading their mindset.
Their software, yeah.
And one of the ideas that I shared with them that I could tell that their feedback said that they got it was I said, you guys have to learn how to master your body, master your finances, and master your marriage. When you master those 3 things, you then need to add a 4th thing to juggle. Most people will define their life by the problems of, well, I made good money, but my health sucked. Well, my health was amazing, but my relationship sucked. You have to get these 3 ducks in a row. Money, relationships, and your personal health. You get those 3 things lined up, and all of a sudden, you now have the ability to add a 4th and a 5th. And I look at all the companies that we're starting and juggling, merging, buying, et cetera, and that's only because we have our ducks lined up. And I shared that idea with them, and all of a sudden, one of their big takeaways was, I have to freaking unzip this fat suit, or I have to get ahead of my marriage that is a 6 out of 10 right now, because I'll never have bandwidth for doing something bigger than the fact that I can't figure out my selfish life. I want you to have multiple businesses. And by the way, I had people in that room like, great, you got one successful business. Optimize it. And when others can optimize it at a faster rate than you can, step out and start another one. Juggle another ball. Add more to your financial atmosphere. Build a bigger financial universe. And that was their takeaway. So, hanging out with very successful people is something that everyone should strive for. I have a private mastermind where I've got 25 buddies that are super well-known, super successful, and we all hang out. And when I hang out with them, I grow in business and we do business together and we all are financially better off. And so I've got masterminds and places where people can come and hang out with me and get exposure to people that will change, it'll rub off on you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, this is the most affordable mastermind that you have ever done.
It's less than $10,000.
Because you want the maximum number of people to be able to join Financial
Well,
Genius.
anyone that is serious about financially massively upgrading their life, they need exposure to world-leading tax experts, world-leading business starters, like people like Kevin Harrington, right, from Shark Tank.
And he's in Financial Genius.
Because he's in my franchise vertical. I've got people like Dolph DeRoos who just walked me through that very complex commercial deal and helped me select of 3 properties, which one that I needed to buy. He was instrumental in that decision. People like Robert Allen, who's the king of no money down real estate. I've got, people in there like Roland Frazier, who has had over 1,000 exits and has structured over $10 billion gross revenues and sales for companies that he has helped sell. So when you hang out with these people, guess what happens? It's called Financial Genius because just by being in the airspace, you become more financial genius. Yeah.
Okay, so listeners, I want you to do this. I want you to go and text. Just say, hey, what's up? I want to get in touch with Kris's team. Text 385-217-3477 and just mention, that's actually Kris's number. You're texting Kris directly. And just mention that you're interested in joining his mastermind. It's called Financial Genius. And the stuff that we're doing in that mastermind is super incredible. And you come away from it after a year of just being an absolute expert in many verticals of earning money.